Ken, thank you for taking the time to sit down here with me. I really appreciate it. It's
Yeah.
I love getting to meet new creators and other creators, and so I think this is just always a good experience.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, and go ahead.
So you could give a little introduction about yourself, kind of what you do with your content, things like that.
Sure. What was it? I guess I could start by saying I've been involved with role-playing games and whatnot for more than 30 years. It was sometime, fall of last year where my gaming group and we were all sitting around the table and just randomly came up, hey, it'd be really cool to, take all of this stuff that we've been playing with, coming up with, etc., for years and years and years, and start putting it on the internet. And so after a month or two of just kind of, hey, it's kind of a cool idea, I decided, well, let's actually just do it.
Yeah.
And started doing it in the 4th month now, so not very long. Getting ready to release the 4th of my monthly adventure scenarios that I do.
Wow.
Trying to set up just to do one a month so that I don't run into quality problems or anything like that. I don't know how some people try to pump out 4 or 5 a month. There's no way.
Yeah. Well, they just you probably know DM Dave. He comes out with them all the time. I'm constantly getting emails multiple times a week.
Yeah. The guy just apparently he writes 24/7. I don't know. I'm a programmer, so I've got to do 8 to 10 hours of work and then.
No, I'm a courier for FedEx, and so I'm getting up in the morning, doing my job, and then if I have time at the end of the day after school and everything, then I can sit down and do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got a job and school.
Yeah, and I just got married back in November, so that's still new. So
yep.
lots of stuff going on, but I like to stay busy. I like keeping busy. So
yeah, exactly. It sometimes gets me in trouble with my partner to stay busy, but that's all right.
Yeah. No, she's really supportive of me and everything, but sometimes she's like, you're always playing. But then she understands because I got her into playing now, so she's starting to get it now. So it's always nice. Now I don't know that a lot of people can say, hey, my wife started playing D&D on her honeymoon, so that's that's something that
That's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, she goes back to work after a honeymoon. She's like, guys, guess what I did for the first time on my honeymoon? They're like, just stop, don't talk about shit. I played D&D. And everybody's just like, oh, cool, okay, cool.
Okay, all right. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations from November.
Thank you. It's a new challenge. Learning to live with somebody and just sharing your life with somebody is interesting, but it's honestly been awesome. Having somebody to help me, just at the house, keep me eating meals regularly, things like that. It's nice. It's a good thing.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Right on. And then, I guess, can I ask how long you've been doing D&D and what brought you to being a video? What is it? It's not a podcast. I don't know what to call anything anymore.
I'm just calling them interviews, creator interviews. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to go about it. Well, I've been playing D&D since I was 16, so just about a decade now. I'll be 26 this year, and I like saying a decade because it sounds cooler. But I started acting and doing theater and stuff when I was in 3rd grade, and
Mhm.
that got me going with just kind of, you know, being other people than myself. And I've always loved telling stories. But then when I moved to a new town, I met a friend, and he was telling me that, like, oh, we do this thing, and it was actually Call of Cthulhu, which is like a
Yeah,
dark and gritty, kind of
I know
insanity
it.
filled. Yeah, I mean, you've been playing
Yeah.
games for 30 years, you know, and I really loved it because it was like I was acting on a stage with other people, but it was full improvisation, you know,
Yeah.
and that was just, and it got me hooked. And they played D&D. Our dungeon master, he had like so many books and everything. I started with a 3.5, and but they're like, guys, let's not play right now, it takes too much math. And I'm like, but I want to try it, you know. But yeah, it was a good time. And then I kind of dungeon mastered or game mastered a couple times, but it wasn't until about 4 years ago when I really started getting into it and became a forever DM, which is my favorite thing to play. So
Okay. Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I'm of a very strong belief that anybody who wants to excel at being a DM should spend at least some of their time every year as a player.
yeah,
And every person who desires to excel as a player, which is something we should all be worried about as well, there's so much concentration on just be a better DM, be a better DM. You know, I think we also all come to the table with the responsibility to be a better player.
yeah,
And a better player always tries to spend a little bit of time every year being a DM. I think knowing both sides of the table is a really good thing. Now, if you're brand new, of course, you're going to be a player only for a while, and there's no stress there.
mm-hmm.
But as soon as you feel comfortable, I think it's important to take that other seat at least once or twice.
Oh yeah, I when I say forever DM, that's just like I like to play, but actually half of the games that I'm in these days is I'm actually a player. And so I have like 2 or 3 campaigns on the side that I'm a DM for, but the games where I'm pretty consistent is I'm a player. And yeah, I love that you said that it's, you have to be on both sides, because yeah, to truly understand the game, you have to realize that dungeon masters, they're players too. You know, it's everybody needs to have fun. And for me, a lot of that fun comes from world building and putting my players in situations and seeing how they get out of it. But also part of that fun is getting out of those situations and feeling like, oh, I'm about to die. But then you just, you know, you get through it, your party comes together. So that's really
well.
cool.
And for example, as a DM, you know, one of the things I like to do, some people like them, some people hate them, but I do enjoy puzzles and riddles sometimes, especially in a classic dungeon delve. You know, I don't think any ancient mummy is going to hide their treasure without a trap or a puzzle or two.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was just, if you think about like ancient Egypt, like real world, the pyramids, you know, there are so many like traps, and so many people have died just from delving into those dungeons. And so it makes sense.
And secret doors and everything like that. Yeah, it's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Cool. But I guess what I'm getting at is, as a DM, if you're always on that side of the table, you can forget how obscure and difficult a puzzle or a riddle can seem, because you don't have all the information as a player. If you're sitting as a player regularly, you remember that, and you build better scenarios as a DM.
I think my biggest problem when it comes to puzzles and things, when I know the answers, I'm like, come on, it's so simple. Like, but then a lot of times I forget that, oh, I missed something, or there's this one phrasing that I should have said differently, so that way they could actually get it. So yeah. So it's a good time, and I'm really lucky in my games. I guess when I'm home. But we have a group of, there's a total of 8 of us, so it's a big group. It was a little bit smaller, but then you know, partners.
kind of came in and wanted to play, and of course we're gonna say yes, please.
No gatekeeping in D&D. Like,
yeah.
it's
So there's 8 of us total, and out of that 8, 1, 2, 3, 4 of us are regular DMs or GMs.
nice.
And there's another 3 who have at least tried it and done it successfully. So out of a group of 8 players, we have 7 DMs. It's amazing. And to be able to, so we'll try to do, like, one of the things we'll do is we'll do 2 campaigns simultaneously and play one every 2 weeks. So you're playing every week, but you're switching campaigns It's so much easier for the DM to prepare instead of preparing every week.
I think that's really awesome, because then you don't get stagnant in one campaign, because there's sometimes, and I think I'm kind of feeling this right now with one of my campaigns, is like if you're constantly playing in every week, sometimes it's just like if you're stuck on one thing for a while, or you're in one place because the sessions are just going on forever, or you don't have as much time to play, it feels like you've been there for so long,
decades.
No, seriously. So that's actually a really good idea. I'm gonna suggest that to my group. Be like, hey guys, let's split it up. That's awesome.
It works for some people. Other people might say, hey, I want to keep a consistency. I want to keep a flow.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own way.
Yeah.
But,
And I think one reason why I like being a dungeon master so much is because when I'm world building or coming up with ideas, I really love, like, they're always coming to me. Every day at work, I'm driving around, so ideas are always coming to me. So I like being a dungeon master because I can just take those ideas and just put them in, like, as much as I want. Because when I'm a player for too long, sometimes I get like, I want to multi-class, or I want to change my character, because it's like, I have this really cool idea, but I can't just change it, though that might ruin the party. So
right. Well, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I've had a few Instagram posts recently about how to kind of plan campaigns and keep them fresh and interesting for everybody.
Okay.
And one of the things that I highly, highly recommend, and probably a lot of people might come down on me for it, but try it before you knock it.
Yeah.
Is a campaign should not be more than 15 sessions.
Wow.
Maybe up to 20.
Yeah.
You should finish an entire campaign storyline in 3 to 4 months. Maybe at most 6 months. Now, that doesn't mean you have to change characters at the end.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't mean that you have to take a break or anything like that. It just means that, like, book 1 of the series is finished.
Yeah.
You have a start point and a stop point. At the stop point, you can look at the table. You can say, hey guys, are we really having fun with this? Does anybody want to change characters? Do we want to go to a different game? Does somebody else want to DM? And you can go right into book 2 and just, like, it's continuous. That's fine. You can do that for 3 years.
It was just the middle of just talking about cutting up, like, or having a campaign being like 3 to 4, maybe 6 months, and then going from book 1 into book 2, same characters, or you could change up the characters.
Yeah, and the important thing is just having those stop points so that both players and DMs can shift if they want to.
Yeah.
Even chapter 2 of the same campaign, somebody might want to change their character. So, person A goes off into the sunset, person B comes in for book 2, the rest of the party stays the same.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
I really like that. And I mean, somebody who has 20 plus years of experience on me, that's actually some amazing advice that I wish I would have known before one of my current long-running campaigns. I guess in April, it'll be a year long. And I think part of that reason, like, I'm enjoying it and my players are liking it and stuff, but I think the other reason why it's gone so long is because when we started, 3 out of the 4 people were new players. and they were just like, let's just go. And I was like, okay, I'll put something out there. And so I didn't really have a plan. And so it was pretty much just like starting improvising, like, and then improvising, and then I planned things, and then like, because I improvised up to a certain point, it was like, kind of went off in a lot of crazy parts. So, but I've learned a lot from this campaign, because I've never had players stick around. Not because I'm a bad person, but just people haven't stuck around because like time scheduling and people moving away. I'm in college, so people are always moving all the time. Yeah, and so So.
No, I mean, we all have tables that people come and go for various different reasons.
Yeah.
When you're in high school, you get grounded. When you're in college, people move. After college, people have children.
Yeah.
There's always the challenge somewhere.
And then and even if you don't have kids or something, life just gets in the way. And so that's. I mean, and I really like that philosophy of keeping a campaign 15 to 20 sessions. I mean, that's still a good amount of time. That's 3 to 4 months, maybe 6 months. That's a lot of time for not only to develop your character and go through an arc, but also to give a new dungeon master, hey, try this out for this decent amount of time. If you don't like it, we can cut it off, we can end it, or keep going. And and I think that's the kind of the solution to my problem of wanting to play so many different characters is like, okay, I can stick with this guy for 3 to 4 months, and then I can go to the next one.
Yeah,
I think part of the reason I love this. Dang, you're so wise. It's
I'm growing a beard. I'm trying to become wise. But...
Okay, every dungeon master I've interviewed or talked to has some sort of facial hair, so I think it's like I think it's just like part of the culture. There's something about beards and facial hair. I can't grow very very much, but I go where I can.
Cool. I'm not allowed to grow very much.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Luckily, my wife she likes it, so I'm very very blessed in that way.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Let me, at risk of pretending that I'm more wise than I am.
Okay.
You mentioned the improvising at the beginning of your year-long, which of course we all do that sometimes. And
I think I saw a post in your thing of things not to do.
Yep. Yeah, but I'm actually going to talk about protocols. Have you seen my protocols post?
I'm not sure.
Okay. One of the ways that I tried to make it easier on myself for improvising because no matter how much we prep, players are going to run off the rails. And I'm not the type of person to say, hey, come on back here, the train's over here. I won't do that. Mm-hmm. But and like you, I am a prolific world builder. I love it. It's almost my favorite part of the game.
It is my favorite part of the game. Other than seeing the joy and the emotions that come from the storytelling. That's number one. Because that's number one. But for me, I can't now with my schedule, but I used to just stay up super early in the morning, just world building, writing, everything. So my World Anvil, I've got some of it publicly available, but the notes and the different discombobulated things that you can't see. Actually, I'm sorry. Before we go ahead, you said you use World Anvil and it's a good program, but do you also just have tons of stuff in your head that you just know about your world or the story? Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the game world that I've been putting on World Anvil is more than 10 years old.
Wow. Okay.
There is so much stuff here that has never been written down. Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get it all written down because, we know D&D has 1,000,001 settings, but it needs 1,000,002.
Oh yeah, no, and like for me, my current world that I'm constantly building upon, it's my baby.
Yeah.
There's these things called rifts that are essentially doors to other dimensions, and so if a player wants to bring in something from a different setting, they totally can.
Yeah.
There is a way that can happen, because I don't like to limit my players. I don't care if you want to play an Eric Kokra or if you want to be whatever. Like we can make it work.
Yeah. No, that's cool. But anyway, going back to protocols before I forget about that. Yes, sorry.
Please. No, I interrupted. You're good. You're good.
So I actually pulled this from talking about pulling things from life. I pulled this from a presentation at a company where the guy came in and said, "Hey, your business doesn't need rules; it needs protocols. It needs to declare its goals and its ideas more than it needs to declare what time you come into work."
Yeah.
And kind of I do the same thing with my game world. If I have a village and I say, this is a locals only small farming village that's distrustful of magic, I have a protocol for that village, and I don't need to know anything else about it when the players go there, and I have to improvise because I've got something to start from and I can build from that start. And it keeps you from going too far off into la la land when you're improvising. And the more you can, I try to layer the protocols with a world, a region, cities, characters, buildings, whatever. And I think that helps.
Yeah.
Because you can get a whole bunch of that done in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then be ready to improvise without fearing too much that you'll, hit the ridiculous.
Yeah. Break
right?
your own continuity.
Yeah.
So how do you create these protocols, and what's an example going off of kind of that one about this small town that doesn't like magic? What would you do that? How would you work that in?
Okay, so let's just say, normally for a gaming session, number one, if you're paying attention to your players and what they're saying and how they're doing things, you can normally pretty well guess what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
But let's say I guess completely wrong. They go off the rails. They head to this other town, and I've got a protocol for it. All I know is it's a small town, locals only, don't trust magic. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. They're heading to it. All right, now it's a farming village as well. When adventurers walk in there, everybody's going to give them like distrusting stares, maybe walk inside of their house instead of greeting them, pretend they can't hear from across the fields. Maybe there's not even an inn because people don't want you to stay there.
Okay. And that right there.
And I'm just going right now.
That right there is an amazing, just because improvisation comes from preparation. You can't yes, you can't just pull things out of your butt and say whatever, but I've found that the sessions where I do have to improvise, it's because I know things about this world, and that right there is awesome.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. The protocols of your world. Yeah. The limits of it. The attitudes of peoples in general.
Yeah.
And it really helps. And I find that because world building is intimidating, and honestly.
Yeah.
Sitting and reading about the entirety of the Forgotten Realms or Eberron or Ravnica is intimidating.
That's why I'm creating my own world, is because there's too much, and I don't want to spend all of my time learning about their worlds. I want to create my own.
Yeah. But if you just learn a little bit, it can help you to improvise, and it can keep you inside of the the constraints, and it can make things feel authentic to the players. And then you're sitting there behind the DM screen saying, okay, this village is named Unit, it doesn't have an inn, nobody's going to talk to you. And now you have a developed village that you take back to World Anvil, and it's there.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's really cool, because then if you know that magic is not welcome, it's not trusted, then oh, okay, don't tell a story about this place, about this wizard saving this village. Because then
Exactly.
and then it's just like, okay, now I know what to stay away from. That's amazing right there. Wow. That is...
But you could tell a story about a knight saving the village from a wizard.
Oh, I just got chills right there, because it all just fits together.
Because it comes together, cool. Right?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
This is why I wanted these interviews, because like I love talking about D&D and storytelling and world building, but also there's so much to learn from other people. And yeah. I just thank you so much for sitting down with me. I truly appreciate it, because this is the type of things that I need. This is like, I just love it. I'm at a loss for words of how much I love this type of game, but also just collaborative storytelling in general. And how it brings out so many good emotions, and how during the game you can be crying with your players about the death of an NPC or a character, but when you leave, it's like, man, that was a good time. Even though it was like in the game, it's like, it was super scary and horrible.
Oh yeah, no, and those moments when you're just immersed in the game, you remember those forever. Right?
You're saying?
Yeah, I think this is my fault on the internet.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like you said, the 5,000 mile difference. It's probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
You were saying something about 1600, and then it started breaking out, or something like that.
No. When I was 16 or 17.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That makes more sense.
Yeah. And now I'm 200 years old, but I still remember, those events.
Yeah.
And it's because of the atmosphere. It's because we were all just really bought into it. Yeah. Playing our characters, and some of the things that you start to miss as you get more and more experienced is, the first time you run into an ogre. It's this huge, powerful, scary thing. The 30th time you run into an ogre, you're like, that has X number of hit points, its AC is this. But you can still bring that back through effective collaborative storytelling, and the veterans at the table buying into the story, and the DM at the table buying into the story, and you really can get that feeling back. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think that's where my love of homebrewing and creating my own monsters and items and things it comes from, is because when you can, like, let's say, take the ogre, but you give it resistance to whatever damage or some armor or something, and just beefing it up so that way your players can be like, oh, this is an ogre, but this is different than a regular ogre.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, even just giving it a persona. Yeah. Having it, act in certain ways gives it a little bit more life. Yeah.
I really love the trope. One of my favorite things to do is taking races or monsters and actually making them good, or like they have a family or something. That way the players can, if they're smart, or if they're like careful, they'll stop and think about the situation before they just go in and kill. I've been very lucky to not have any murder hobos in my parties, or to actually deal with many murder hobos, and so I do like putting in things like that and giving my players the chance to step back and think about these situations.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, it's really that way. Well, in life as well, there may be people you very much philosophically disagree with and are technically your enemy. Yeah. But they have families, they have friends, they actually believe that they are the good guys. Yeah. And so I often like doing that. I often like, you know, there can be a group of kobolds that has, okay, one of my published scenarios is about a group of kobolds that has escaped the tyranny of a dragon that they were serving.
Okay.
And they've come and they're hiding in some caves, but they're raiding the nearby village for food.
Yeah.
And for shiny things, because they want to emulate the dragon and build their own treasure pile.
Yeah.
They don't think they're the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they just escaped essentially slavery.
Yeah.
But they kind of are the bad guys to these villagers who are now suffering for lack of food, who are losing their fine china,
Yeah.
you know, their gold. And so, and I always like playing with those various dynamics of, you know, maybe you are chaotic evil, but you have a reason for justifying your own actions. Everybody justifies their own actions.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing about storytelling that has changed over the past, I don't know even how long, is I find that a lot of people don't like just the serialized, like, yeah, just chaotic evil villains who are just doing it just because there's a hero. Nowadays, I would say villains are actually more popular than heroes because they're vulnerable and they have a reason why they're doing these things. And I love taking cliches and just turning them just a little bit that way. The players, they're like, oh, this is familiar, this is cool. Oh wait, he did that thing. Oh man, that means this.
Well, and something that's important for me is, yes, that villain is, like you said, vulnerable. They have something that drove them to do this that does not necessarily make them good.
No.
And it doesn't mean you don't have to stop them. Mm-hmm. But it's going to hurt you a little bit because you can identify with what they're going through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Thanos from Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame, that's the most popular one right now. Also, the Joker from the recent movie is just because people are like, oh man, like, yeah, he's a bad guy. He does bad things. They do bad things, but we kind of get it. You know, we see why they're doing this. And I think that's, you know, it. And one thing when I see a lot of people creating stories or writing, a lot of the advice that they give is make a good villain. Because if you don't have a good villain, the story will not be as powerful.
Well, you know, if you want to take another example from the Marvel movies, the individual who shined in the first Thor movie was Loki. Yeah. That was the reason people liked that movie. Yeah. And Loki wasn't a good guy.
No.
But,
he's one of the most popular characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of that reason. Because they worked to make him, you know, this vulnerable character who changed the status quo. So
and you know, we can take that further, and you know, I'm thinking now because I'll jump from Marvel and I'll jump right to actual Norse mythology, and then I'll jump to, you know, Irish mythology, Greek mythology, all of that. If you look at it, even their gods of good were imperfect.
Oh yeah. Yes.
You know?
100%. Zeus was horrible. He was so bad.
Yeah. And then you look at Beowulf. Beowulf is this epic hero, and he's completely imperfect. Yeah. And so you have the imperfect evil and you have the imperfect good. Yeah. Because we're all human, and I think that's important to understand and to recognize. And I love the group I play with now because so many of them are interested in playing a well-rounded character that's not necessarily like, I am the toughest and best, but like, hey, you know, maybe I went and killed somebody I wasn't supposed to kill because I was a barbarian out raiding, and now I'm like feeling bad about it, and that affects my character going forward. And people who really bring that character depth is cool.
Yeah, one of my current characters that I'm playing, he's multi-classed as a barbarian, fighter, and monk. But the reasoning is like, I wanted some cool powers and stuff. But the reasoning is because like he grew up in a barbarian tribe, and they were killers, they were savage, and he never liked it. And then he left that, and he met this human who kind of saved his life, and he started learning from this human how to be a fighter, how to use weapons and be more precise with his attacks and stuff. But he's like, it still wasn't enough. And then he was just traveling, and he met this Githzerai who taught him how to be aligned with oneself, and it's not just about your body, but it's about your mind and controlling yourself to fulfill your potential. And now he's an Way of the Astral Self monk, and it's fun to play him because like he has all these powers. He can action surge and rage. But I actually never used those. The first time I used those powers was this past session because it was a really hard fight and because an ally died. He normally doesn't like using the extra abilities because he doesn't like who he used to be. He just wants to focus on mastering himself. And I found that I'm actually working on my own self-mastery. And so I kind of subconsciously made this character because I'm like, I want to be good. I want to be better at this thing. So I think.
Well, and
making characters. I like making characters with lower stats because it gives a story, and it shows something about that character, or you can come up with something about that character and why does this guy have 8 strength or 6 strength or whatever. So.
Yeah, and I also think that we all subconsciously put some part of ourself into every one of our characters.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun to embrace that and run with it and explore different parts of our own personalities through the creation of a character in a game. One of the things that I also try to caution players with is you build that character with flaws and with a deep personality, but you should never make them a detriment to the party as well.
Yes. You want to be good at what you do. Yeah. So we've been talking about all of that, and I just want to throw that out too. Make them. Don't. This whole thing of not using some abilities, that's totally cool. But also, when it comes down to it, and you're fighting the big bad evil guy, and everybody's got 5 hit points left, do something. No, my character, part of the reason, is because it's a hard fight, and I wanted to be cinematic, I'm bringing out the stuff. But also, he was about to die.
Yeah.
I needed the resistance to the damages. I needed to attack to get the second attack action. So I 100% agree. Have fun role playing, but it's still a game. You still need to play your role, do all those things.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what type of dungeon master are you? What's kind of like your dungeon master philosophy? When it comes, you've had 30. You said 30 years or 30 plus years.
If we want to get technical,
I want the
close
hour, the seconds. I want down to the millisecond of when you started playing D&D or role-playing games.
I am between 32 and 33 years of role-playing.
Gotcha.
I have been DMing from the very beginning.
Okay.
Also playing from the very beginning. I'm not sure how much you can count DMing as a 12-year-old.
That's where the
it was
ideas come from. I'm still using ideas from notebooks from when I was that young.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me has been, I guess I am the type of DM who strongly focuses on the idea that my job is to present the world setting and the NPCs inside of it.
Okay.
And the player's job is to present their own characters and the story that they want. And then, as I'm representing that world, things are going to happen in that world. I might have this, warlord who is, conquering different kingdoms on his search for a certain mineral in order to, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to reveal too much. There's an ongoing campaign with that.
Don't.
And he'll do his thing.
Yeah.
Whether or not the players decide that their characters are going to interact with that storyline is up to them.
Yeah.
And the warlord will try to do his thing, and if the players don't interact with it, then it's totally this thing on the side that I'll keep track of, and it'll affect the world. If they do interact with it, it becomes a main storyline. And that's really where I lie with things. So, I like to say I'm sandboxy in a way, in that I'm just giving you the world and the NPCs, but I'm also not sandboxy because I'm not leaving you without a story or without possibilities of a story.
Yeah.
So, and it's not an easy way to DM, but with my obsession with world building, it's my way to DM.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's really cool. I love player-driven campaigns because that's what I want. I want my dungeon master to not focus on me solely, but give me my moments to shine. But you can't really do that if the dungeon master is just pushing his story. Like you mentioned earlier, you can't. The railroad's over here, the train's going this way. You have to give them their time to shine. Setting up encounters where the players, the wizard can counterspell, or the barbarian can just rage, the fighter can fight,
Yeah, absolutely. And give people opportunities for character growth. I love putting moral dilemmas in front of people. I tend to not pull punches. If I'm rolling on a random encounter table while you're going through Untamed Wilderness, those random encounters are not CR balanced.
Yeah.
You're level 3 and I roll for 12 storm giants. There's 12 storm giants.
Yep.
So you're just going to hide. That's all.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to make them kill you. But it's a random encounter. So let's make it random. So, and of course, I'm not a jerk. I introduce players to this concept. I help them understand things, that it's a living variable world.
Yeah.
And I try to keep them from getting themselves killed, but the options there.
Yeah. No, I think I think player death is important. Not just to be like, oh, I'm gonna kill your character, but just to show them, hey, it's a game and these things happen. And player death, it leads to more storytelling. It leads to new characters. It leads to a lot of good things, actually. And it can suck, but it's also, my personal philosophy, like I kind of mentioned, is I like to try out new things. I like to learn. I like to play different classes.
Yeah, absolutely. And to understand, that, again, it's a role-playing game.
Yeah.
So you've got the role-playing, and you've got the game part, and the game part is I can win or lose. And of course, it's a role-playing game. You don't ultimately ever win or lose. Yeah. You ultimately finish a storyline and decide whether or not you're going to start a new one.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of win and lose in skill challenges, social interactions, combats, etc. I'll stop there, or I'll start going off on a million things. But you want to make sure that everybody's coming into the game feeling that you're on their side.
Yeah.
in the sense that you're trying to provide a fun and engaging experience.
Yeah.
And you might have players who will really be hurt if their character dies, and so you're careful with those. But others really enjoy that challenge and really want to know, hey, when we beat that red dragon, did we actually beat that red dragon?
Yeah.
Yes, you did. I love being able to say, yes, you really actually did. So
no, there was my main group that I played with. It's almost been a year. They were in this fight for literally a month in the real world. Four different sessions because, well, one, just time constraints. We were only able to do about 1 to 2 hours per week, but the enemy was just, it was kind of like a secret boss that they could or could not encounter, and she was really hard. But once they killed her, they were super happy, and it was a hard fight. 3 of the 4 players almost died. And I was like, guys, you did it. Good job. And they were like, oh, thank goodness. And partly because it's over, but also because they just, I hope they feel accomplished, and I hope it was hard and it was long, but I hope they had a good time.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, these are things that stories are told about. You have stories told about great role-play interactions. You also have stories told about deadly challenges that were overcome, and maybe Boromir didn't make it, but that's part of the story, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, just kind of what we were saying. Death is a part of the game, and people remember those moments. People remember why we're doing this,
Yeah. Oh man, Reddit is an interesting place.
I agree with that.
Full.
Reddit's a very interesting place.
Sorry, we had a little bit of a pause there.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good. You started talking about Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit is an interesting place in that I got in a little bit of a discussion with some people, and I got downvoted to hell. But I made the argument that in Lord of the Rings, when Boromir dies, it is a random encounter. Because they're traveling through the woods, they're hanging out, they're not expecting to run into... I'm going with movie on this one. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not...
I haven't read the books. I probably should, but I haven't.
Okay. I read them a long time ago, and they were fun, but the orcs are after them, but really it's kind of a chance encounter in the woods after Boromir has tried to steal the ring from Frodo. And so I really look at this as the DM just rolled a random encounter and said, hey, the orcs find you. And the player playing Boromir says, well, shoot, I'm kind of out here away from everybody else. I'm going to try to hold them off. I just did a terrible thing. I'm going to try to redeem myself. I don't think the player was expecting to die. They were expecting the rest of the team to be able to come to him. But things happen, and instead of saying, oh man, it's not an important encounter and I just died here, no, they chose to make it epic. The player chose to make it epic, the DM chose to make it epic, and the random encounter turned into a seriously impactful part of the entire story.
Because that's one thing that's important is making these things meaningful. Boromir's death goes to the end of the story. Aragorn is still wearing his gauntlets or his bracers. In his death, in like the Vision death scene, he's still wearing those, and you're like, if we're huge nerds, so we notice those things. But it's things like that make it special, and I like that. That's when you put it that way, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and that actually does give his death and the whole thing around that an interesting twist that I never would have thought of. And
maybe you have the opinion that it's different, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is the idea that you can turn anything into something epic.
Yeah.
People say, well, my character shouldn't die unless it's an important moment. Well, what makes an important moment?
Mhm.
You make the important moment.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, in real life, death happens like that all the time. And
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, you know, and talking about all this world building and making these stories, but is hearing your wisdom. You are very wise. Hearing your wisdom in these things is impressive. What is your favorite part of world building?
Oh. Well, okay. I guess one thing that I've been focused on a lot in the past few years, because it's hard to pick one thing.
Okay, yeah, sorry. That's a bad question. What kind of interviewer am I? What would you say is for you is the most influential part of world building? Because
all right, I'm still going to give this thing.
You're good.
Go ahead.
I don't have a favorite part. I guess I love it all, which is why I do it so much. But I guess for you, what is the most influential part? What keeps you going in world building?
Yeah. So I am. I'm very, very fortunate in life in that I'm a programmer. Mm-hmm. I've been working remotely since before COVID.
Okay.
So I have been able to be what they call a digital nomad, and I can live anywhere in the world at any time I want. And I tend to travel somewhere, live there for 2 or 3 months, then my visa-free ability ends and I move somewhere else.
That's pretty cool.
And this allows me to experience a lot of different cultures, a lot of different peoples, be very confused by a lot of different languages. But it's also it also really influences me to bring that concept of culture, of intermixing peoples, of different ideas into the game and into the world building. And it's been something that's really been motivating me and influencing me these past few years.
Yeah.
Of, you know, even the concept of time management. It's so hard for me when I first came to some countries where time is a little bit more of a flexible thing, where people don't feel bad if you're speaking with them and they interrupt it for a phone call, or where a line is more about a mass of people just kind of gathered together instead of a line. And these are real legitimate cultural differences where it's actually acceptable in different ways. And to see things like that and to try to put things like that into the world building in the game and help people feel like they're really in different places is something that's really been motivating to me.
Wow. Yeah. No, I think, and that's again another reason why I am really feeling how amazing it is to talk to other creators, is because I get other perspectives. I get perspectives from younger people and older people, and because nobody has the same life experience, and especially from going from America to a different country or even just a different town or state, you can get so many different perspectives. Yes, most people in America speak English, but if you go to the South, it's a completely different language. That is just it's weird, but that's because I haven't experienced it. And I think one of the beautiful things about D&D and just role-playing games is how you can step into another person's shoes that you've created but is influenced by a different culture. And that's amazing that you have that opportunity to go to all these different places pretty consistently and take from them and add it into it and give your players a different perspective. Because I would say there's a very low percentage of people that actually gets the opportunity that you have.
Yes. And as I've said, I am a very lucky person. Yeah. I understand my privilege, basically.
No, that's... And it sounds like, how we mentioned kind of about death, how it just happens very quickly. You agree to that, and that's probably because you understand, you need to appreciate what's around you. And when you only have 2 or 3 months, or sometimes I'm sure even shorter, to live in these places, you really have to absorb as much as you can.
Yeah. And at the same time, being there for 2 or 3 months gives you a much different experience and immersion into a place than a week.
Yes. I haven't had much chance to travel, and
sure,
all of the world the past year and now has kind of ruined some of those plans to travel. But I never want to go to a place for just a week or just a weekend. I want to go there for a month, because you get to try different things and experience different things. I have friends who they go to other countries and they're like, oh, it just wasn't enough time.
Yeah. And I mean, you're also very, very right. In the US, Portland is going to give you a very different feel from Salt Lake City.
Yes, I'm from Washington, and I've been all around Washington, all around Portland. I've been all around Utah. I'm currently in Idaho, and so I totally get what you're saying. Portland is even just half an hour outside of Portland is completely different than Portland.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like you said with the South, I remember going into a Waffle House in Virginia, outside of the big cities. And I am ashamed to admit that I did not even know the girl speaking to me was speaking English. And I'm very ashamed to admit that, because I lived for a time in the South, and it's an accent, just like Boston has an accent. And I've also been in Boston and been on the T and had one of the engineers on the T say what the next stop was, and I had to look at the next guy and say, what did he say?
Yeah.
We have to learn our accents. We have to learn all of these things. So the U.S. is incredibly varied and amazing. Yeah.
No, it is. And I think that's one thing that we can get from Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games. And I think, honestly, the world sucks right now, but the benefit of doing online gaming, I have made so many friends just through online gaming. I'm currently in a group. I'm a player we play with a girl from Ireland, and she's
great.
I've never met anybody from Ireland before, and it's just because we're playing this silly game with dice and math, and it's like I love it. That is the people, the experiences that you build together. That is my favorite part of role-playing games.
Yeah, and it really.
I was just going to ask, what's your favorite part of role-playing games?
I want to say the people with you, but for me, I think it's a little bit different. I thoroughly enjoy the people and meeting new people and bringing new people into the game. But what I really love is seeing a table where we're all having that immersive experience. Where it's like the best movie you've ever watched, except you're the main actors in it.
And the director.
And
the writers.
Yeah. Maybe there's some edit and post.
You're
okay.
You're the third interview I've done, but you're not the first that I've had to edit because of internet issues.
Okay. But just like at the end, and you just sit back and everybody's just, that was like, I have to sit back and absorb that for a moment.
Yeah.
That is where role playing is for me.
And when you're like, and we're gonna stop there, pick up next time, they're like, no, we gotta keep going. Guys, it's 1 a.m. I'm tired. We've been playing for 7 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I love those moments because it's game night, we're playing, or game day, and you're able to just share those experiences and those things. And we're doing this. It's not, oh, my character did this. we're doing this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing is we're doing it together. Like some people, you don't have a good table without a good DM, and you don't have a good table without good players.
Yeah.
And no matter where you are on development right now, all of you can get better. I can get better. My players can get better. Everyone can always get better. And we do it together by just, having a good time.
Yeah. I have a question, and
Sure.
Since you have so much more experience than me, have you ever felt burnt out as a dungeon master from like world building? And if you have, how do you get past that?
Okay. As a dungeon master, I have felt burnt out in the sense of I'm telling these stories every single week. I'm running out of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the only way to get through that is to stop and let somebody else DM, or just take a break for a short bit. Burnout is real. It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
For a while I was a personal trainer at a gym, and we would highly recommend to people do a program for 6 weeks, take a week off, start a new program.
Okay.
Because you don't want to burn out. You don't want to destroy yourself. And just same thing with DMing. It doesn't have to be 6 weeks, but you will run into a point where you say, I can't keep doing this every week, guys.
Yeah.
I just need a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
And that's really what you need. You need a break from DMing.
Okay.
With world building, I don't know that I've ever burnt out on world building, but I have definitely had writer's block.
Yeah.
And for me, the best thing when I have writer's block like that is to just have an open brainstorming session with myself or with a few friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call up, my friend Tom and say, hey, I've got this idea. What do you think?
Yeah.
Or my friend Eric came up with an entire player character species and just was riffing on it, and it it unblocked what I was going on. And yeah.
No,
So,
I think that's probably. I'm not necessarily burnt out, but I feel like I'm on the verge of that.
mhm.
But I like that idea of kind of leaning on other people for a little bit, kind of
Yeah.
getting that. For me, it's hard because the people that I do that with are my players, and so I don't want to reveal too much, because every dungeon master has their secrets. But
Yeah.
no, I like that. That is really cool. Do you have any other sage advice for a younger dungeon master, or any other younger players, or even older players?
As much advice as I pretend to have, I think everybody, I hate saying this generic thing, but it's so true. Everybody's experience is different, and what works for you and your table is going to be different from what works for mine.
Yeah.
I try to share what works for me, what works for my friends. I do have some experience. I've run public games, created groups, that still exist, etc. But what works for you might not be what I recommend, and you should take your own path.
Yeah.
And try advice from everybody. Like you said, you love speaking with people and learning things from them. Half the reason I agreed to do this is because I get to learn things from you as well.
Yeah.
Like, anybody who thinks that they've learned it all has just put themselves behind everybody else.
Yeah.
We are learning until the day we die.
Yep.
And if you embrace that, you're always going to be better tomorrow, and that's our goal in life, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that is. I think trying to be a little bit better every day is one of my goals. I love that this discussion has been yes, the overlying theme is role-playing games, D&D, but we're just having a good life discussion right now. And I really appreciate that.
Well, and what is D&D though? You play a fake life.
It's true. It's true. It's very true.
And there's a reason why role play is a part of, psychology and therapy. Not necessarily D&D role play, although sometimes it is.
Yeah.
But it's situational role play because we learn about things, we learn how to deal with things through mocking experiences.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I guess my biggest piece of advice is never run a DM PC. Yeah. Never run your own character as a DM. You can run an NPC.
Yes.
But never make, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done that because from the very beginning I heard don't do that. And so I'll have reoccurring NPCs and other things. But yeah, I don't think I ever had like, this is my player in the game.
Yeah. And, even if you are perfect and run them absolutely objectively and fair, it doesn't matter. The players know you have knowledge they don't, and there will be resentment.
True.
So, yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah. So any character you run as an NPC, and if you want to play a PC, have somebody else DM.
Yeah. That's some good advice right there. That's some really good advice.
So I don't know that it's creative or new or different, but I'll keep trying to put advice on my Instagram, and I'll keep trying to put out new adventure scenarios, and I will never keep up with the pace of DM Dave, but all of my scenarios will be, they're 15 to 30 pages long with a good number of encounters, and I think through them, and I'm a published writer, so I'm not terrible at it.
Hey, I think for a lot of people, like, yes, the dream is like, hey, this is my job. I'm a writer. I get paid. This is how I pay the bills. But I think just for a lot of people, I just want to put things out. I just want people to appreciate my stuff, even if it's just one person.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of people are like, oh yeah, money's cool, but I think just getting things out there is probably what a lot of people actually want.
And again, going back to life lessons, if you're doing it for the money, you should stop doing it.
Yeah.
And that's your job too. I, as a programmer, I've done a lot of interviews of programmers who want to come, work for the company I'm working with or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guys and girls that are there because programming has money in it, you know who they are and you don't hire them.
Yeah.
But the ones who are there because it's an interesting thing to them, you can tell that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah. So never do anything if you're just doing it for the money.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's one reason why I decided on my major, but I think one reason why it took me so long to decide that major was because I never knew exactly what I wanted to actually do. And I never really wanted to do anything just for the money. I know some people are like, oh, I want to be an engineer because money's good, but I've never actually wanted to do that. And I think doing things like this, where I'm creating and putting stuff out there, followers are cool. Meeting new people is awesome, but I'm just enjoying making things and creating things, and it just makes me feel good to create things.
Yeah. Now, followers, it's a measurable indication that what you're creating is valued by others.
Yeah.
And so that's why we like it.
Yeah.
And when you get a Patreon patron, it's somebody who's willing to go that extra step and say, I value what you do so much that I'm willing to give you $1.
Yeah.
And okay, it's $1, but it's still, it's like, hey, this person actually thinks I have real value. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me how much that's motivating, not because of the money that it is, but because it says, hey, this person really like cares.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
No, it's people that I don't even know on the internet. I think that's amazing. Like, a little bit of self-plug here. I'm sure you've seen my posts about it, but I'm part of a Kickstarter with this small D&D company that I'm with, and we've almost reached our goal. And I know Kickstarters make it all the time, but the fact that people are willing to put their money towards our stuff and that we're almost to our goal is just, it's pretty insane. And it's amazing to me that this thing that I'm the head writer for, they want to see, they want to play it. And I'm like, it's scary and terrifying, but also it makes me really happy. And
it's amazing. It's cool.
Yeah.
And you say, sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You go.
You say Kickstarters make it all the time, but they also fail all the time.
No, it's true. It goes both ways. I'm sure there's way more failure than success.
Yeah. So you should feel good about it. Yeah. Like really. Yeah. Yeah. That's really super cool. That's the what is it? Dungeon Forge?
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The Kickstarter is the Turtles of the River Valley, and we wanted to make that because turtles are underrated, and they're pretty cool, chill creatures. So.
They are. Yeah. They're cool. Yeah, our current campaign has a turtle pirate in it. That's one of the players.
Nice.
So yeah,
turtles are awesome. Being able to have 17 AC just right off the bat, that's good in my book.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we're over an hour now. I just have a few more questions because I don't want to take too much of your time. But I just have a few more questions, a little less personal, but just kind of just about the way you DM and stuff. What is your favorite type of monster to run against your players or for your players, depending on how you look at it?
Okay. I know you're looking for a fast answer.
Whatever. I don't care. Whatever it is.
I don't have a favorite monster. What I do is, given the situation of the scenario, I like to have a backstory of why a monster is where it is and what it's trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I like building that. I like having the story of why is a monster here? What is it trying to accomplish? And to me, combat is just a part of the game. I don't necessarily care, and I want to be careful here because like in the adventures I publish, I very carefully like CR balance everything, make sure things are going to be challenging but not too challenging and whatnot. When I'm playing at home, I don't so much care if the players just rip through a combat because it's just part of telling the story.
Yeah.
And I'm going to challenge them in a variety of ways. I've had a social encounter that was life and death.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, it's all about the dynamics of the situation rather than the creature that's encountered.
Yeah.
Does that have sense?
Yeah. Oh no, that 100% makes sense. Like you said, combat as a pillar is just a part of it. And for me, it's taken me a long time to kind of balance the exploration and social encounters and combat. I've never been a player that thrives or loves combat. I play for the role playing, but I know there are players who love just to fight and kill and defeat. Yeah. And so I have learned, okay, I need to raise this up a little more each time. Just for those players who come for that.
And I will say that I love the role play. I also love a tactical combat. I enjoy a combat that's not just a flat mat of a 30 by 30 room with no obstacles and no reason for them. I I love a combat where, there's kobolds that are standing on top of a 20-foot ledge that you're going to have to scale, and they're shooting you with bows and elsewhere, yeah.
No, that's
So.
Yeah, the tactical side. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at combat, is focusing on the situation. And like you said about social encounters, some that are life and death, those are, honestly, I think those are more interesting. And you mentioned earlier the moral dilemmas of how do we solve this? Either way, something bad's going to happen. How do we make it the least amount of bad?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Or which side do we fall on? Are we going to, side with these people or those people because the other one's going to die?
Yeah. Yeah. Someone's going to die. What do we do, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Cool. I know I'm sorry if this question is too difficult, but what is the most useless spell you could come up with right now?
Ooh.
You seem like a guy that likes to think things out a lot and plan things, so I'm just gonna throw it at you and see what you come up with.
I have been very disappointed with the recent additions of the sleep spell. I feel that the kind of the randomized hit point range that it can affect, and it's never effective.
No, it's a trap spell for new players. It really is.
Yeah. It used to be a great spell. First and second, it actually had a meaning to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, yeah. Sleep is, that's definitely one of the most useless spells, I would say. Because you could roll just super low, and then no one falls asleep, and then you just wasted a spell slot.
Yeah. And then, with the way 5th edition is built, creatures are intended to have huge hit point pools for people to just whack on.
Yeah.
And so already you're putting yourself behind.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Good answer. Okay. Last question, and this one I feel is a very important question, just people in general. And depending on how you answer could depend on how I see you as a person. But what is your favorite color?
I'm gonna have to go with green because it reminds me of outside and nature and hiking and all of that.
Good job. That's a good answer. I love it's such a silly question, obviously, but I love how so many people have actually just given so much thought into this question about what is your favorite color, and I just love asking it and building it up, and then just be like, hey, what's your favorite color? So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Yeah. Right on.
Well, Ken, thank you again for sitting down with me. I truly appreciate it. It's to listen to somebody who has so much more experience than me, but is humble and willing to learn and improve themselves is really amazing to see, especially in a where there's so many creators who are like, oh yeah, I'm so good at what I do. So thank you so much.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you. It's been great talking. I'm sorry about any of the internet issues we've had, but
it's okay. Honestly, for that much distance to have just those few issues, I'd say that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I'd say we did pretty well.
Yeah.
And it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Is there anything you would like to plug or shout out before we sign off?
I mean, I guess I should plug my Instagram, The Second Watch. So The Second Watch, daily D&D content, monthly D&D scenarios. You can get everything from there. It's got links to my World Anvil where, everything is. The scenarios are free there, or you can, pay for them with the paid version is $1 a month, so okay. I hope that's okay. But what the paid version gets you is exclusive cover art that I commission every month from a really talented artist, and virtual tabletop writing maps instead of just the maps on the web.
I would say
I
that's
think that's a good
definitely a
trade-off.
$10 value, but the fact that you're selling it for $1, that's fantastic. That just shows that you're a good person, that you're not in it for the money,
Well,
but you want a little bit of compensation,
right. What it goes to is I want to feel like what I do is valued, but yeah, I make my money, and honestly, the only thing that I'm going to spend this money on when I make it is paying for more art commissions.
Yeah. And
So
supporting artists, super important. Super
Yeah.
important.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, that's literally the goal, is being able to get more art commissions.
That's awesome. And
Yeah,
my own plug at the end, the Turtles of the River Valley sponsorship and the Dungeon Forge. We have everything from dice to t-shirts to
Sweet.
amazing miniatures, and I really think we have something amazing for our Kickstarter. We are, I think, just about 90% of the way there. So
Nice.
if you could check it out and even just look at it and tell me what you think, I would really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Will do. Will do.
Thank you, Ken.
Cool.
Well, again,
Thanks.
thank you so much. I had a fantastic time.